Good afternoon, everyone. As Taylor said, my name is Dimitri Ehrman. I'm the Executive Director of Development and Architecture for the Fox Media Cloud platform. We're part of the Fox Entertainment Group, which is responsible for both television and film distribution of content. And today, I'm going to talk about a program that we went through with Docker, Avanade, and Microsoft in modernizing one of our applications through their MTA POC program, Modernizing Traditional Applications. So a little bit about Fox, and in particular the television distribution side. We have over 1 billion subscribers that leverage our content. That content is leveraged across 500 plus channels worldwide in 170 countries. That's pretty much most of them, if not all. And so as a result, we are really a global company in that arena. As a result, we have a lot of pressure to innovate and consistently deliver on content. So 3 critical pieces in that delivery for us are the time to market, the reliability and elasticity of our infrastructure to be able to scale to traffic as needed. And then one of the other key goals for us internally on the IT side is to improve our continuous integration and deployment pipeline. Now, challenges that arise. Similar to most companies, we have a budget constraint. We can only do so much in a given amount of time, as well as a resource constraint. We only have so many people dedicated to these initiatives across teams, so we can't just easily scale out and do everything we want in a month. So on top of that, we also have architecture constraints. We have some of the monolithic applications that have been running in our data centers for years. It will take a while to re-architect them, rebrand them, put them out there. So we were looking for faster, better ways of doing this. So enter Docker, Avanade, and Microsoft with their Modernizing Traditional Applications POC program. When they approached us at Fox, we were really excited to see how this would work on one of our applications that's built on a .NET stack and deployed into an Azure environment. So we selected one of our applications that I'll introduce in a minute, and our goal was to see, can we reduce the amount of overhead and the amount of spend on maintaining this application, deploying it, modernizing it, improving it, and all those factors, and how quickly can we get into the cloud. So as part of this program, Docker and Avanade and Microsoft put together a 4-week plan. First week, we had Docker and Avanade people on site helping us, working collaboratively with my team to implement the migration to the cloud. The other 3 weeks were dedicated to support from a remote location, just to make sure that we were still able to function, deliver, and deploy. So we chose one application, we containerized it, and put it into Azure. End-to-end was the goal, the entire stack of the application itself, and to walk through how do we operationalize it running in Docker Enterprise and in Azure Cloud. So the amazing part of this was we were able to do this in 3 days. The entire process of converting it from our N-tier application into the cloud. So it was important to see how this application would operate on multiple infrastructure layers within Azure, leveraging Docker Enterprise. We wanted to see, does it reduce and eliminate the amount of time that it takes for us to have deployment downtime? And I'll get to that in a second in the next slide. And then we wanted to see how quickly can we improve the application infrastructure. Can we scale it out quickly? Can we add more worker nodes in minutes as opposed to days where on our traditional infrastructure side? And then how does the continuous integration and deployment pipeline work in that environment? And then one of the things that we also didn't have originally was a disaster recovery plan. So it was important for us to see, can we get disaster recovery quickly and easily? So we chose our broadcast affiliate portal. This portal is responsible for distributing promotional content to our affiliates, that's our television stations across the US. So how many of you see promotions during your favorite show that says, Patriots playing Falcons Sunday at noon? It's like a 30-second spot during a commercial. Those are the promotions that we distribute through this portal to different affiliates. They come to our site, they choose which version of the promotion they want, they select it, we download it or stream it to them, and then they air it as part of their commercial time slots that are assigned to it. So, challenges. This application originally took 3 hours to deploy, which was a required maintenance window. We had to go to the business and to our clients and to various groups to request a time slot. We couldn't just deploy whenever we wanted to. We had to make sure there was no critical deliveries. And there was a lot of manual steps involved in the deployment process. As a matter of fact, this bugged me. It bugged me because, and I'll give you the story, I spend a good amount of my day at the office and traveling in LA back and forth. So I don't get a chance to do some of my financial work until the weekend. And sure enough, every weekend when I sit down to do my paperwork, one of the sites is in a maintenance window. Anybody else run into that? 6-hour, 8-hour maintenance window. Well, I can't live like that. 6-hour to 8-hour maintenance window. And then I look at my stacks that I oversee, and I have 3-hour maintenance windows. It's embarrassing for me as an IT person, as a developer at heart, that I have to wait 3 hours to deploy an app that I know I can get out there in minutes. And then the other problem that bothered me a lot was the fact that we didn't have a disaster recovery plan. We had 2 virtual machines running the entire application in one data center, and that if anything happened there, it would take us probably days, if not weeks, to bring it back online. And we do have backup contingency plans on how to deliver the content if need be, but that's still not a good way of running your business. So, more details about the application. It's a multi-tier .NET 3.5 stack with SQL Server 2012. It didn't leverage a lot of CPU on the virtual machines that we had allocated to it, and it also ran alongside probably 5 or 6 different applications that were sharing the same infrastructure. I've seen this plenty of times. You build out beefy VMs, and then you've got more capacity than you need, so you start shoving more applications into them, which isn't the best way to run your business either. And then all of these were built on Windows Server 2012. The application is fronted with an external load balancer that routes the traffic to those 2 VMs. And then 2 instances of the portal application. We added a Redis cache layer to cache the data so that we didn't hit the database as much. We also had an external MS SQL 2012 infrastructure set aside, and we integrate with other services like Okta for identity, and as well as other APIs to consume metadata and other functions. So what were we able to do with the MTA program from Docker, Avanade, and Microsoft was we went from running this application in an on-premise infrastructure on Windows 2012 to converting it to a 2016 instance of the operating system without a single line of code change. We made a few configuration tweaks, and that was it. We containerized it. We put it into Docker Enterprise running on Azure. We took the Redis cache layer, containerized it, put it in there as well. We did a migration of the database to Microsoft SQL running in Azure, and then made a few configuration changes so that we can continue to talk to our authentication and APIs that were running elsewhere. In this process, we went from running on 2 VMs to testing it out with 3 worker nodes in Docker, and then a single manager node for UCP and DTR. We didn't require, it's a part of a POC, we didn't require the full production setup, but we wanted to see, can we quickly scale out? So part of it, the reason of running 3 worker nodes was to see how we can deploy the code without incurring any downtime. And we were able to achieve this really easily within minutes, not a problem. So the 3 worker nodes were really there just for us to test over the 3 to 4 weeks that we ran this POC. The results. So our typical life cycle for this application was a 2-week agile sprint, development test, and then asking our business when is the good opportunity to deploy the code because it was requiring a 3-hour maintenance window. There's no redundancy in the application stack, and when we needed to do security fixes, my team can quickly patch the application, test it, have it all done within hours. But again, we had to ask for a maintenance window because the application required downtime. So that became a problem. If we wanted to also add additional infrastructure, it would take at least a week to provision a virtual machine running Windows, have it attached to the network, and deployed. So those are all problems that we wanted to see solved. After we put the application into Docker Enterprise, we are able to deploy any change to the application, whether it was a security fix, a new feature, configuration change, within minutes. Have the nodes cycle through the Docker migration process, and within minutes, the new features were up and running. The redundancy was there because we can have 3 worker nodes, 5 worker nodes, 7 worker nodes, however many nodes we need to run the application. And then we were doing this with an initial continuous integration and deployment pipeline. It wasn't production ready, but it showed us the path to get there. And then whenever we needed to do a security patch, we saw that we can do that with no downtime. So now it takes minutes for us to scale. The entire process of converting the application was actually just a 3-day process. And actually, one of those days, we were stuck on configuration changes. So it could have been as easily as 2 days. And those config changes were actually communicating with our authentication APIs. So nothing to do with the program itself. So our team, which was skeptical that we can do it this quickly, was actually quite surprised, and pleasantly so, to see that we were able to convert it in 3 days. What's next for Fox? So while we went through this POC process, we are still looking at how we're going to deploy this into our production environment and go through our change management, information security pipeline. But we were so impressed with this that it spun up a whole bunch of conversations around other applications that we can move into Azure Cloud, leveraging Docker Enterprise. And so this POC is still there, still sitting in Azure, waiting for us to figure out our plan, our roadmap, and how we're going to get there. And this was, for us, especially for some of the skeptics on our teams, the developers, and even the operations teams who have never seen Docker running before, they were impressed with how quickly we were able to do this and how little effort it took to convert it. And that's our story. Thank you.
Thank you.